I'm in Chelsham, and this walk covers Worms Heath, Broombank, Hovings Hole, Nore Hill Loop. There are three key elements that I'm going to highlight on this walk. One is what was a huge quarry. The second is a Cold War anti-aircraft battery. And the third is the site of a Bronze Age enclosure. That was where I stopped in my earlier video, just in Ledgers Road, just off the Limpsfield Road. But I need to go to the footpath entrance up here. So this is somewhere I've not been since I was in my teens, which will be 45 odd years ago. And just to briefly recap the story from the other video, came up here on our bikes, wandered up to the, I suppose, where the path levels out here, and saw what was a huge gravel quarry. I'm intrigued as to what this was. There's some rollers in there, pulleys, a bit of a motor. Was that something to do with the quarry activity back in the day? More recent? My first request of the day, can you tell me what that is, please? Answers in the comments, thank you. I see a mound and we see a rising landscape there. So mining activity took place on this spot, going back to at least the 18th century, possibly much earlier. Mineral extraction. I remember this huge quarry. We came up and I couldn't believe the size of it. Not visible from the road, but it was only by coming up here and looking around, and we just saw the depth that the extraction activity went down to, and there was water coming out of a pipe and lorries coming and going, and no safety fences. It was just us peering over the edge almost, it felt like. I found, when I was doing some research for this story, for this walk, reference to a geological excursion that took place in 1910. And there's some photos that they took from their trip, all very smartly dressed, listening to the guide, no doubt. But it does give you a good feel for basically what was under this surface. When I visited here with my mates and my brother, it was in that period of commercial extraction, 1960 to about 1994. After that time, the agreement was that this plot of land would be filled in with inert material, finished off with some topsoil so that it would lend itself to the sort of agricultural use that we've got already in the area in adjoining fields. But for whatever reason, that didn't quite pan out. So in May 2021, Tantridge Council agreed to a proposal for topping off the land here. Now, you can probably make out there's all sorts of rubble there and bits of tile and brick. Even to the untrained eye, it would be nigh on impossible to grow anything on there. I mean, there's just, you know, thistle and some weeds here. So the agreement was to raise the level of the ground by putting in a formal agreed mix of the right materials, make it blend in, let's say, with the rest of the land that he was already working in the area, making hay and that kind of thing. So that was 2021 approval. That was 3 years ago at the making of this video. I'm assuming we're kind of in the middle of that process. There's a sort of raised trackway, which I guess is for lorries and the like. I believe that it covers this whole area. There's some grass growth there, nettles and the like, and also things sticking out. Pretty much that is the story over all this land. This path will remain open throughout. That was obviously one of the conditions, public bridleway. So yes, we are sort of in the early stages, it would seem, of building that up, levelling it off, and there will be some seed planted in the midst of all that, and then it will become, from a working perspective, exactly like the other farmed fields in the area. I think originally they said it would take 12 months to do, but that probably assumes quite a few things, you know, availability of cash, materials, personnel, resources. Right, so the path continues. Make a mental note of the positioning of the large barn there. all will be revealed. Although I've kind of hinted to it already. I'm assuming that the target for the quarry area is something like that. So the story to the area where the barn is in the middle of the picture there. In 1946, following the end of the Second World War, there was a review of anti-aircraft defences. This review was called Nucleus, and out of around 1,000 heavy anti-aircraft batteries in use during the wartime, 210 were to be retained and re-equipped under the new scheme. By 1951, the threat was the Cold War, a nuclear war looming. And this scheme that was called Nucleus developed into a scheme called Igloo. Now within that, 78 new heavy anti-aircraft sites were proposed with permanently mounted guns at 54 sites. And Worms Heath Heavy Anti-Aircraft Battery was one of those sites. So the area at the top of that hill there, the top of that mound where the barn is, it was the location for 4 3.7-inch anti-aircraft guns. They were linked to a control room, like an operations room down at Merstham, and they were stood down around about 10 years later, 1960-61. In terms of what we can see, well, just going on Google Earth, you get a very good timeline, because you can see 1945, quite a blurry image there, but there's no activity there at all. There's nothing, it's just the farm and farmland. And then when we go through the sequence, you can see quite clearly there were concrete structures, and these structures held the 4 guns. It also goes up to the more recent times when the barn was built. Now, if you look very closely on an aerial photo, you can actually see what we saw before, the outline of the gun positions, the concrete gun positions, and the barn sitting kind of on top of the little plots of land that they occupied. So in terms of what they look like at ground level, there were a couple of blogs that were done round about 2009, 2011. So I'll put links to both of those. They've all got photos on them. But also someone did an urban exploration type video on YouTube, and I'll put a link to that as well. So you can get a much closer view of what these are all about. Obviously there are no guns there, it's just the structure around them, where the ammo room would have been and where the guns were actually been mounted. But I have to say, I found that really quite fascinating, that here in this relatively sleepy part of the outskirts of London and into the Surrey countryside, not that far from Biggin Hill, over in that direction, but we had these anti-aircraft guns, 4 huge anti-aircraft guns that were in position for about 10 years or so, thankfully never used in anger. And now the land has been used for the purposes it was originally intended, as a farm, and they've got the structure there that in some nice way it kind of marks them, gives them like a permanent reference point. So they were the Worms Heath Heavy Anti-Aircraft Battery positions. Watch where I'm treading, I'm on a farm. Yeah, so this is a NATS aerials, National Air Traffic Services. I'm being looked at by some cattle here. I'm going to go nice and quietly. They're following me. This is where I hope that they're fenced in. Whilst there's nothing to see now, and there's nothing we can get up close to, the internet has helped us, because through the mapping such as Google Earth, and through the fact that people have recorded things on blogs and on YouTube, it means that we can actually get a taste for what was there. And another view. I think it pays to look back sometimes. I'm not entirely happy with the colour of the sky, but hopefully we'll be okay. Oops. This road connects up quite well going back to my home through the country lanes. Don't always go that way, because sometimes it's a bit dicey with heavy, big vehicles coming the other way and stuff. But I had to go that way to save some time today, because I left my microphone at home. So this is like take 2. This isn't the actual footpath that I'm going on, but there is a footpath apparently right through the middle of that field, that valley. apart from the smoke that's there and some sheep in the background, I just thought it made a very nice view. A little bit grey today, but still a nice view. Beach Farm, very old building here, still on Beach Farm Road. It just does almost ends up being a 90-degree turn, I think so. And this takes us back onto the Limpsfield Road for a bit. And yet another aerial that's on the plot of the farm buildings. There's a lot of them around here. Now, the next part of the walk is crossing over. Bearing in mind we've got this footpath and cycle path, then I'll stay here and cross in a safe place. Just to link up one of my previous videos, that was the Botley Hill, the water tower. Just in front of it you can see the little windsock and everything. They do hang gliding up here, Warren Barn Farm. But yeah, just to join up one walk to the next really. It's like I'm kind of covering all of this wonderful landscape, one walk to the next. It's difficult to say if there's a proper plan around it. There's a rough plan. And also from the comments on the videos, I like to get recommendations from people that say, oh, try here, try there. So that's always good fun. Some growth in the hedgerows there at long last. The air has been cold for the last couple of weeks here in the UK, and I don't know, it almost feels like spring has been sort of stopped in its tracks a little bit. Yeah, indeed. Let's respect it. So this is the, well, it's the Warren Barn Farm HGV entrance. It's also a public bridleway. And it's the next bit of my walk. Do something awesome. Hey, look, I'll put that on screen. And then if you want to do something awesome, you've got a QR code there. A closer view of the windsock and vehicle. It's actually a caravan. And then just panning around where we were before. This actually joins up with my Woldingham walk. This roadway down to Warren Barn Farm. I'm not going all the way down there, but this is where we enjoy the landscape and also step back in time somewhat. There has been a lot of archaeology done in this area. Roman finds and Bronze Age finds and the like. And we'll touch upon that a bit later on. But the first feature we're going to is Hovings Hole. Now I've stopped here just to get a view here. That's quite a steep climb there, which I will be doing. So there will be some huffing and puffing. I pre-warn you. Well, this surface does make a pleasant change from some of the winter walks. I know it might be a bit crunchy on the audio, but it's good on the feet. I can't just go out and do something that's active. I much prefer to have the camera in my hand. That's, I see it as a win-win. Got another do something awesome. We've got the Vanguard Way, we've got the GMT trail, which I've touched on before. And there's even a proper stone public footpath sign there. So that's nice new latch there, which is good. That's all secure. It really is quite something. So I believe this is Hovings Hole, where a number of valleys all convene. We've got another one of these little caravans there to do with the hang gliding, based at Warrenbarn Farm. But actually, if I just go really slowly round, you can get a really good idea of just the sharp climb. Horses enjoying their time here. And obviously this is private land belonging to the farm, but we've got a public footpath on it, so really quite something. And I've got some climbing to do. So let's go. It's drained quite well here recently, which is plus. So I climb a certain distance and then I need to take a left. Heading up towards Nore Hill. It really makes a difference when they put those extra trail signs on the gateposts. Maybe look to do some of those trails, or I mean, I've done part of them, haven't I, before? Maybe formalise it a bit. Got these posts here, so you can't open them any more than you'd need to and stop the wrong type of access taking place. Steep a bit here. It's quite something. Yeah, that's where I walked before. I can even recognise the hedge. And there was the pump house and that kind of thing. It's the only thing with cameras, you can't really see the elevation. I mean, I could try. I'm holding the camera level and you can see it's quite a slope there up to the windsock. And it does have a Peak District feel about it. The decline was fairly shallow. The incline's a bit harder. Yes. I was hoping there'd be a seat, and there is. Provided by the Vanguard's Rambling Club and the Vanguard Way Marathon. Thank you guys. I will avail myself of the seat and the view and the wildflowers and have a little break. Okay, off again, suitably recovered after one of the most crucial placed benches I've come across in recent walking times. Sets it off quite nice, doesn't it, against the landscape. The trees will look different in a month or so with full leaf. Right, I'm going a bit further and then I should be able to take a left, and I'm hoping that the path is marked. Dear oh dear, I was frightened. I don't know about them. After the fact it's always quite funny, but at the time it's like, what was that? Yes, be careful where you're treading, Philip. Vanguard Way sign. I've got Worms Heath Cottage here, or cottages. In this area there was a Bronze Age enclosure right behind the cottage, quite a large one as well. And obviously we can't see anything above ground anymore. But if I show you the plot size from the Historic England entry, but not only that, if you have a look on an aerial map, you can see the outline, and it's also depicted on a LiDAR map, which gives you an idea of the relief. Now, I can see some different levels of ground here, different levels of the landscape, but difficult to pick it out in any detail. Hence, overlaying the maps is probably one of the best options. There have been excavations over the years that have had many finds to prove it. Also some Roman finds as well, which there have been Roman finds in other parts of the area, but it was felt that after the Bronze Age and during the Roman occupation, some kind of activity took place here, possible quarrying, that kind of thing. There would have been people living here, defending it, working the land, cooking, going about their business. Our Bronze Age ancestors on this very plot of land that we're looking at now. And life just carries on. We've got the B269 Limpsfield Road where I walked up earlier, and the quarry in the distance there. Obviously we can't see it from here. Our ancestors would have found out very early, because of needs, what could be dug up out of the soil and used. You wouldn't have a settlement if there wasn't enough around you to maintain it, maintain your existence. And I realise I may have just slightly gone off track, so I'm just going to cross this land here, because there's a feature that I wanted to see. I was looking back at the enclosure area. Well, let's bring in the aerials of modern world, so that's where we went earlier today. And then we've got the cottages, and the enclosure would have occupied all that area. We've got a little watering hole here. I disturbed some large birds just now, possibly herons, probably herons to be honest. This is what I wanted to observe, and I think there's an information board. I will walk around it. Whilst I haven't got wet mud, got these very hard hoof prints. Wow. That's obviously the low point, not of the walk, but of the land. I'm quite pleased I'm not sharing this with cattle. But this, I believe, is Nore Hill Pinnacle. I don't plan to go down there. There might be something. There's certainly a footpath sign. So I did have to correct my trail a little bit, but you can, because it's not always clear, it's not a precise science. So I'm on the footpath. It just points in Worms Heath Cottages that way, and it goes past the sign in that direction, which I will follow afterwards for the final bit. So the small dome in the centre of this hollow is all that remains of a tall chalk pinnacle. About 85 million years ago, a thick layer of chalk was laid down on the seabed. Millions of years later, the chalk was exposed on land and was eroded into tall, isolated pinnacles. Later, these were buried under thick beds of sand and gravel on the edge of a seashore. In the early 20th century, the sand and gravel was extracted and the chalk pinnacles were revealed again. The quarry was later used for landfill, but this pinnacle was preserved as a remainder of its long geological history. And in 1973, the site became the first geological nature reserve in Britain and is now managed by Surrey Wildlife Trust on behalf of Surrey County Council. The cattle are there, they're kept in that enclosure today, or this part of the day. So I'm fortunate that I've been able to spend some time on their land and not disturb them. Fortunate for them, fortunate for me. This is the thing with footpaths, you don't always get that clear, defined path, because for whatever reason, maybe not many people use it. This particular one is a cow field. This is what I'm currently facing. It's a bit different to what I've had recently. It's a bit firmer, but almost looks like something from a sci-fi film. There we go. Needed persuasion. Let's just lower the camera angle a little bit and pick out those bluebells a bit better. And whilst this isn't one of the traditional bluebell woods. It's still a very, very pretty site. Mature woodland. Very nice. Enjoy this last leg of the journey. The rich greenness of the new growth with the blue backdrop, really nice. So I think we can safely say we've seen a bit of everything today. We've had a mix from extraction out of the ground to commercial extraction to perhaps even Bronze Age and Roman extraction. Beginning and end, and in the middle we had the anti-aircraft battery that lived for about 10 years. I'd love to know if anyone's got any further information, photos, guns in situ. Oh, this is beautiful through there, look. Wow, isn't that beautiful? Some blossom coming down from the trees. It looks like, actually looks like snowfall. Hopefully the camera can pick that out. I assure you it is not snow. But that, I just know that's the best angle sometimes. I can sort of look down, but I think also sometimes the nearer you are to the level, it's just that much thicker carpet, or the visual effect is. It really is quite stunning. I almost don't want to leave the view, but as it's getting noisier and the very last part of my walk is just me going back to where I parked the car, it's a good time to say thank you very much once again for joining me on one of my walks. April country walk done, tick. Different, but equally as enjoyable. If you like what you see, please subscribe. Make sure you also hit the little notification bell, then you'll be reminded when any new videos come up. And in the meantime, look after yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.